Oh boy, episode 4. And I'm gonna go ahead and apologize in advance because your boy sounds sick. I sound fucked up. I know, I could just tell by my voice. And I feel fine. My nose is clogged, of course, but I sound different. Now, this is episode 4. 2 and 3 were released on the same day. That was kind of a fuck up on my part, but I was watching 2 as I was uploading it, and I was like, yeah, I kind of want to make another. So I made 3, uploaded 3, and I was like, okay, I feel content with that. So for 4, I don't necessarily have a planned out script in front of me. It is currently Monday, and I release these on Mondays. So what that means is we're just gonna jump straight into it. And segment 1 is gonna be Entertainment Central. This is the first time I'm doing this one. And for this specific like spotlight kind of shout out, if you don't know him, Larry Starks. Man, he is one of the funniest people that's just like one we have like access to locally to Lexington. But he translates it to social media and just YouTube videos and stuff so well. It's crazy. This specific one like that I'm gonna give a shout out to is the Areola Roller Coaster podcast. Just the name's comedy. But he has a podcast, and that's what it's called, the Areola Roller Coaster Podcast. That shit is so fun. Cause if you want to give it a try, just go to his Instagram. It's either Larry Starks, Starks TV. Can't remember what the Instagram is, but the YouTube is Starks TV, and he'll post clips from the podcast on YouTube, and he also does reactions on YouTube. He's just one of the funniest content creators and comedians in general that I've seen locally here. And who knows how long I've worked at the comedy club, like over 3.5 years. And he's such a nice dude. He's such a good person too. It just adds up even more. Like a lot of these people that come to the comedy club, they're some of them you can see right through them. Some of them are like, yeah, you can be a nice guy to people who can give you give you something in return. But Larry Starks is just genuinely like a good dude. So I would 100% back his podcast and all the content he makes because he's awesome. I would go for sure check that out. And it's cool too because Larry worked like it wasn't the first one. The very first show I ever worked at Comedy Off Broadway was the Kelsey Cook show, and I'll always appreciate her for that because it was a great show. It went by super easy, and I was still like green, so I just loved being there. But the second show was Josh Prey, and he's been back since I've first seen him, and he was just as nice, just as funny, good guy. But Larry was with him the first time. The second time, of course, he ran it back and came back with him. But just that was the first time I ever like met Larry, and he didn't even know who I was. He just knew I was like, oh, this is the new guy. I've never seen him before, and he was super nice off the rip. And then ever since, he's just been nothing but nice and nice and nice. So I cannot support that man enough, especially because there's these comedians locally to us that have their podcast, and I've talked about it. I've talked about it on here already. I know I have. Some of them are good, but some of them are like, yeah, you can be entertaining on camera, but talking to you in person is like you just try to get something from people. It's so annoying. Larry is the polar opposite of that. If anything, he wants to give you something by making you laugh and not even give him something in return. He's just like, I'm happy, I'm glad to be here. This is a good time. This is what I want to do. So I respect that 100%. And speaking of comedian, aka Larry Starks is a comedian. For what I'm gonna talk about next is I'm gonna try to be as nice as I can. And it's Cobb review, by the way. I'm gonna review this weekend's show for 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼. And again, like I'm wearing his hat. You know what I'm saying? This is his hat. And I'm gonna start off by saying him as a person, super cool. He was a super nice dude. He was a little cocky, but you have to be cocky if you're trying to do this because you're not going to make it if you don't have a cocky mentality as if you should belong there. But it's still noticeable whenever you're in Clay's position and Garrett's position, who we just deal with all of the comedians. Like individually, we have like one-on-one moments where they can either make or break a personality. Like, are you gonna be arrogant, nice, or just like standoffish? Now, a lot of them are nice to standoffish. A few of them are in between of like nice and arrogant, but just enough to be like, oh, you're just trying to make your weekend easy. To the ones that are just like nice straight down the middle, I can't appreciate them any more than I already do. Like those guys are the ones that I will 100% work that weekend whenever they come. They're my favorite shows to work. Now, the ones who are just completely on the arrogant side, you'll probably hear stories about those in future car reviews. You've probably heard one about them in season one with the man Rat King, fucking this dude right here, 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼𝙇𝙎. So there's just some that they completely stand out. Like it's notable. Like, oh shit, next time he comes, we're gonna have to remember if he's the same way, and if he is, that's confirmed. He's just some people. It's not even like Gone Hollywood, because they're not a percentage close to what the fame in Hollywood would get them. But it's just a mentality thing. To them, they have to act that way because that's what they do. People who are trying, the people who are there trying to strive to be, is that's how they act. So they're like, all right, we have to act that way as well. And then again, it's been over 3 years I've worked at the comedy club. I've gotten used to it, but that doesn't mean it's I don't I don't necessarily make a list, but I make a mental note of like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a dick. Okay, and just look out for him. So all that being said, he was a good guy. He was a like every night he would talk to whoever. He would be nice to whoever. It was his crew. They were nice. They were all respectful for the most part. The problem is with the nuance of comedy nowadays. It's and you can point fingers at which comedians have really started like the wave, which made all the other comedians just back behind them, and then now it's just the nuance. But whenever you do crowd work, it really flips a coin to if it's gonna ruin the show or not. Like if you're a comedian that is based, like for example, I'm gonna give, and I hope this isn't looking too much behind the curtains, but if you go to one of his shows, you'd be able to tell, or not. If you go to two of his shows, you'd be able to tell. I'll say that. Because one, you can kind of get duped and be like, "Oh wow," but the second one, it's still repetitive. So you'd be able to notice like if you compare and contrast the first show you watched with him versus I'm talking about Ian Beck, by the way. If you watched this first show and then you went and watched the second show, like in the same night, you would 100% be able to realize like, oh, okay, this is the process, this is what he does, and then he has a bit to follow after the question. So it's an established way to do comedy. Now, you have to be able to control the crowd to be able to let them know, okay, the gate's closed for me talking to you because now I've gotten the premise that I was searching for and I can fill it with my content that I have on my own that I was waiting for the premise to pop up from the crowd. Boom, here it is. What these new comedians are doing nowadays is they'll talk to the crowd to get that premise, and then once they get the premise, they don't close the gate. So everyone just starts, they think, the crowd thinks it's okay for them to yell out because they've seen four people right before them yell out something completely random. but he played off of it just because of like he had the content or the jokes to be like, all right, bet I can feel that. As my job and Clay's job and Garrett's, we're supposed to police the room, so like we can't necessarily go to a person and be like, hey, look, you can't yell out, because that's how he's getting his joke. You know what I'm saying? Now, there are the moments where some dude will yell out like even more, like let's say he's trying to get a premise on like dogs or cats or something, something very basic. So he'll ask somebody up in the front row, you got a dog, you got a cat, like in like a joke setup kind of way. They take a second to respond, but the crowd's trying to hear what they're saying. So it's pretty quiet except for a few chattering at a few tables. And then out of nowhere, a dude in the back is like, well, this person's not responding. He's okay with people yelling, so this is my time to shine. And they just blurt some random fucking, I got a turtle from the back or some stupid shit. And then he would expect the comedian to hear that and then just turn around and start riffing towards him instead of what he was going to do. But versus on how the comedian, how like, I guess if they're green or if they're a road dog, if they don't care how the show goes, it depends on many different things. But they could hear that and they're like, they could shut it down with the like a just a quick joke to let them realize, hey, look, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to this person. That kind of controls the crowd, which that kind of helps. But what you don't want to do is just not acknowledge him at all, because then the dude in the back is like, oh, well, this fucker didn't hear me, and he yells it again. But this time he yells it even louder. And then whenever you have a drunk person in the back yelling something for the second time, trying to get their voice heard, they're gonna like put a lot of their might into it, which makes it even more unclear what they're saying because they're drunk. So they yell something in the back. This is Kentucky. You hear the accent, and then all he hears is some random drunk fucking Kentuckian with his accent in the back yelling who knows whatever gibberish. And then he plays a joke off that, and now that dude in the back is mad. We can't go to him because if we go to him, we're like, hey, look, there's no yelling. Because then he's going to be like, well, what about that table and that table and that table and that table and that table that are actively yelling to him, but he's talking back to him. And so it's you have to learn and you have to know how to control the crowd if you're going to do it. If not, hey, all right, that's fine. But you're gonna have a show that ends up like what happened this weekend. And we didn't do fucking shit, man. And I say this with the utmost respect that I can. And like, I love my job. We all love the job. It is literally the best job I've ever had. I literally get to sit in the room and just watch comedy for free. And it's amazing. I meet all the comedians. I talk to them. It's super cool. But the shows like this weekend, man, there was these two groups that almost fought, and then we had to separate it, which inevitably almost it turned them towards us. Luckily, look, for that weekend specifically, 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼, which I've talked about him in the TikTok video I made, and Alex Hernandez. Both of them saved this weekend, in my opinion. Joe, because he's just a good person alone. Two, he helped settle the fight. So he was a big play in calming and de-escalating all of that. Alex he's one of the people that whenever I'm working a show and I see Alex walk in, I'm like, oh, okay. It's gonna be a good weekend. It's gonna be calm. We're gonna be chilling. It's gonna go by nice and smooth. So we were all hyped that those two were working. But whenever you have the mixture of the crew that he brings in versus how much he doesn't necessarily care how the show goes, it's just a bunch of cards stacked against the comedy club in general. And it was stressful. And again, like joke wise, yeah, he's funny. And I'm not saying he's not by how I've been talking about this weekend. You can be all sorts of like unprofessional appear. So say this is like a line of like Jerry Seinfeld and Dave Chappelle type shit versus like the brand new open micers. You could be right here in the middle, like appearance wise, like on social media and looking like you know what you're doing. Whenever in reality, you're only like 3 steps ahead of the open micers. Just because where you were at when you started, you got the boost from your people around you to give you publicity versus the right place, right time kind of effect versus I can manipulate crowd work to get these jokes out versus if you were just going to go to, let's say, the mothership, for example, because I think that's one that he follows. You're given a 30-minute set at the mothership. You decide, okay, I'm not going to do any crowd work. You're just going to go from minute 1 to minute 30 of just saying your set. In the mothership, they're not going to yell out because the people that go to the mothership realize how hard it was to get those tickets. They don't want to get the opportunity taken from them and get kicked out. So they're all sitting there on their behavior if they're not allowed to yell out to the because there's shows where you are allowed to yell out, but that a normal show like a 30-minute set from him in this specific scenario, it would not be one of those. If he can get on that stage and do minute 1 to minute 30 from premise like and actually following in order and not just being like telling random jokes from the past that he has in his back pocket, actually following a set. That's what matters. And like I'm not trying to talk shit or anything. I'm just being honest from my perspective of seeing hundreds of comedians come through and being able to tell like, okay, this person's a road dog, this person's new, this person's from social media, this person's this person's that. It's all very obvious. If you're seeing them do 5 shows a weekend or even 2 shows, because if you see one show, you can see it play out and be like, oh, that was crazy. They asked this person, do you have a dog? And I keep saying do you have a dog because that's just the most like generic one that a lot of them still use, to be honest. Like, you have a dog, you have a cat. Oh yeah, and then oh look at that, they have a banging joke about having a dog or a cat. It just plays that in that type of scenario. And then you watch the second show, exact same premise. He goes to the exact same table, the exact same seat. There's 4 people at a seat, and the tables are set in the same spots. He goes to the same table, the same seat, asks the same question, and you're like, he's not trying to hide it from us. He realizes that we know it's obvious. It's just the illusion of you're watching him live on stage. So hopefully I'm not breaking any like behind the scenes illusions or anything. But whenever you see comedians that come in with the and now I'm gonna take this on the other side of the spectrum. If I'm talking like this, rest in peace. But there's the James Gregory's, and I'm sure most people watching this have no idea who James Gregory is. But he passed away not too long ago, R.I.P. And he would have the same set. I didn't dislike it, just because whenever you're working the show, you realize how far he is and how much longer you have just by where he's at. So I got to appreciate that much. Plus, I didn't know who he was before. Like my mom and my grandmother and all them know who he is, but I wasn't hip or anything on who James Gregory was. So whenever I started, I learned, and then I got to appreciate it and be like, okay, yeah. And then he passed away, which now I look at him and Donnie Baker in the same boat. And Donnie Baker also fits that standard of like he has the same jokes. So people go there expecting to hear the classics. It's like how if you're like a nuanced comedy fan, you probably have heard that Bert Kreischer at the end of his set would always tell the machine again. And people would go to hear him tell the machine for like the 90th time. There is a certain pocket for just appreciating the same set. And like another one is Etta May. Now she's trying to get new stuff because I think she's doing a Netflix special. I'm not necessarily sure. But the ones who have the same set, it's all, they do it like in a tasteful way. Whereas the people I'm talking about and with like Renee, it's not the same set, it's the same concept of how you do the set. So you're just traveling from state to state to state, asking the same questions, hoping that you'll be able to lead it to, all right, I'm getting this premise, which I'm going to give this topic of joke. it doesn't work out in every state because it was his first time in Lexington, Kentucky. He doesn't realize that you can't talk to the crowd here because then they'll just get comfortable realizing, oh, we could talk back, and they'll just blurt because we police the room hardcore whenever we're there, like whenever we're working. If I'm working a show and someone's talking or someone talks to the stage, we shut that shit down immediately. The crowd realizes we police the room hard. Whenever you have six people that have just yelled out to the crowd, and we don't stop him because that's how he gets through his set, you're going to have other people be like, well, usually they stop him by now, and they're still doing it, and they're not getting kicked out. So that means we can do it. But he's never been to Lexington, Kentucky, so he doesn't know. But that's how he does his set, and that's just the flip of the coin of whenever you're doing that. If you can't control the crowd, it's going to end negatively. And for the crowd, for the comedians, it probably wasn't even a bad weekend. For the employees, oh, let me tell you. It tested our faith in our establishment, that's for sure. I was convinced that building was going to fall down. It was ape shit. Plus, it doesn't help that this weekend, well, not this, last weekend was originally supposed to be Casey Rocket, but he canceled like last minute. So we had to fill in a replacement, which was Renee. And it fucking blew up towards, like, Thursday show wasn't that bad. Show wise, yeah, it was the same, like, energy. But the actual, like, numbers wise, it wasn't that bad. Friday, it amped up a little bit, but it was chaotic as shit. That was the night where, like, the fight almost popped off, and it was awful. Saturday, it wasn't like, we've completely stepping back at that point, and we're like, we're not gonna get hit, shot, or stabbed for the fucking securing a comedy show, so we're gonna step back for this one. So we were just chilling in the back, just letting it play out because he was talking to him, and I just gave my opinion on why you can't do that. But he was doing it, and so I was like, all right, well, it's his choice. He knows how his shows go. It still had the same chaotic energy, and it was crazy as fuck. But we weren't in any harm's way, so I couldn't be that mad about that. As it was Friday. I just can't get over how, like, so as the shows kept going, he would continuously get a shot or a drink. And on the last show, like the very last show, the second show Saturday, I guess he realized, all right, well, this is the last one. There's nothing else after this that, like, it's all right. We need to be in a hurry. So it kind of just turned to a TED talk, and the stuff he was saying, I mean, I respected it. It was real shit. But there's a time and place, and not and because if you're on stage and you have a sold out crowd in front of you, statistically, 25% of them, maybe not that high. I'll say a guaranteed 15% don't want to be there. And once you get into the hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, that like time frame of the show, it might move up to 35% don't want to be there. And if you're not doing jokes, you're just talking to them, you're not making them laugh, you're just like making them think about like real shit, it's gonna move up probably 55%, 60%. So there was a moment where, like I explained, we were in the back of the room. I think Clay and Garrett were in the lobby, to be honest. They just were like, we're gonna chill in the lobby. I was in the back of the room, and I just was looking down. I realized, I was like, yo, he just walked 9 tables. There was like 2 booths on the side. There were a bunch of tables on the left side of the room. There was honestly a table kind of in the middle that he for sure saw get up in the light. A bunch on the right side, 1 in the back. It was like 9 tables worth of people. Which there's 4 people per table, so that's like 36 people plus because we do 5s, and it was probably more than 9. But they just got up. and went to the bathroom and stood in the lobby. Some of them came back in, but like it was noticeable. Like the you can't be quiet whenever over 30 people at once get up from their seat. You can't, like there's no way to cover that noise. And he's just hammered on stage just talking. So he's got to be used to it. But that just stuck with me and I was like, damn. Wonder if he'll be back. But Joe, Alex, they killed it. It was an awesome weekend for them. I'm sure the club made hella money. Hopefully Renee made hella money. But man, the stress that show caused was crazy. Next, it's going to be another Drew's Top 5. And so it's going to be comedy clubs that I would want to visit. And I say this, like, man, I don't want to go to another comedy club, realistically. Because I feel like if I go to another comedy club, I'm just going to point out the stuff that we do or like that we're on 10 about. And it's just going to get to me and I'm going to critique it. And I'm going to be biased and it's going to ruin the experience. And I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast already. But a top 5 for clubs that I want to go to, though. Because I do have a full list already of 5. And I would say there's good reasoning behind the list. Like, it's justified for sure. And number 1, actually, I'm going to start 5 to 1, as I feel like I normally do. Number 5 is it's only there for historic purposes. I've met her son. He was okay. I didn't get wowed or anything. But the Comedy Store in LA. And the only reason I want to go is because Mitzi is the legend she is. And she made an amazing establishment for comedy. From what I've seen and heard on podcasts and just seen in clips and also who goes there and the shit that people talk about on podcasts about the local scene there, it's not looking the best. And I'm pretty sure Paulie's brother owns it now. But it's number 5 because I still want to go just because it's the store. Like, yeah, I want to go at least once to say I've been. And it sucks that they fixed the sign so you can't even go and see the bullet hole in the sign anymore. But hey, I'm assuming they did it for a reason. Hopefully that they don't ruin other stuff in the store, like the actual building itself, before I get to go and visit and see for the first time. But that's number 5 for sure. Number 4 is this is like a newer adding to the list because here recently, and it's not because of Lee Kimbrell, but it also this helps it more to where it's like, oh, it's for sure enough to go before the store. But Zany's Nashville. I've been watching Nate Bargatze. I've met all of them at this point. Like they've all came to the club, and I've talked to all of them. They're all nice guys from what I could tell. They're not all clean, but the general idea of the podcast and like their online presence is mainly just like cleaner and respectful. So I respect that a lot. 2, Lee he switched from Cincinnati Go Bananas to he's like like past at the I don't even know if that's what they call it anymore. But he's a regular at Zany's Nashville now. So that's number 4. I just want to go there 100% on like a Nate Land Presents whenever Lee's doing it. Oh, I would get so hype. And then number 3, this is just like a majority of the comics that I see and watch. They're either New York based or they spent a majority of their time in New York and now they're just out like doing them in their own city or just traveling around. But The Cellar, because man, there's so many clips that I've just seen with the Cellar background and how many stories I've heard comedians talk about The Cellar, and I just want to go at least once just to go. That's number three, 100%. And that's probably the not the next one, but like it's honestly this list is like in order of which one I would go, like which ones I would end up going to in order. Except two and one, they're probably swapped, but still. Getting to that is number two is Go Bananas, and I kind of just want to go to Go Bananas because one, it's feasible. Like that's actually doable. I can go to Go Bananas if I'm not fucking scheduled at Comedy Off Broadway. But like that's a club that if I went to, I would actually know other people that would be there. So I wouldn't just be going there like blind and like, oh, I don't know what to do. So that'd be super cool. Number two for sure. And number one is just like it has to be number one just because of what it is. If if number one wasn't a thing, number two like well I guess that's just how the list works. But number one's also kind of newer still. Number one is Mothership. And of course it's number one because dude, the Mothership is the new store. And it's not even a crazy take to be honest. I guess it used to be a crazy take, but the Mothership is now the mothership of comedy. Like it's the place where you at least want to go and say you did a good job, a good weekend once. So whenever you have something you want to promote, or if you want to go and do something and get a bunch of publicity on you, you could just hit up Rogan or the dude who does I can't remember his name who books Rogan's club. You just gotta hit them up and they're like, oh yeah, it was a good weekend last weekend. He was cool with everybody. Let's run him back because they're about the actual. They run a comedy club for strictly comedians. There's not. I don't think any of the comedy clubs on this list are like strictly. We're gonna help the comedy, help this strive. That's it. So I respect that 100%. It would be in the order of like what I would actually go to and list, but I would probably go to Go Bananas before the Mothership just because it's in Austin, Texas versus fucking Cincinnati. Stellar and Zany's in the store. The store is like number five because I don't even see myself going to LA anytime. Like honestly, who knows? Like in years, I guess. Like right now, it's currently on fire at the moment. So there's no, I don't even know if they're doing shows. Hey, they're probably doing shows to support the fire or whatever, and good on them. But there's no way I'm ever going to LA with how this is looking. Zany's Nashville, I can go there 100%. I would for sure go there. But list wise, now that in the cellar might be swapped, but I just think the cellar could. Ah man, now that I'm actually thinking about it, changing the list, it's going to be the Mothership, Go Bananas, Zany's, the cellar, the store. And that's just because New York, man. I've never been to New York. I want to go to New York. But it's kind of one of those things where it's got to be the right time for New York. Yeah, I wouldn't want to go to New York right now. That's for sure. Too damn cold. It's I'm assuming it's not looking good just like from the way I hear people talk about it. And like I hear them talk about on public podcasts, but I also hear them talk about it like on Patreon, like behind paywalls, where they're just actually talking shit, and they give like the real deal of it. And some of them are like, "Listen, we want you all to come to New York so you can see our comedy shows. So we're gonna tell you where you should go, where you should stay, to avoid the fuck shit. If you have to give explanation to avoid fuck shit, you get moved down a notch. So Zany's is above Cellar because Zany's is chilling. If I remember correctly, there's no like problems with fucking Nashville. Well, except one problem where the last like three Nateland episodes, the power's been out, and I was like, what? Why? Like all I don't understand, but the power that ass went out three times on as they're filming an episode. So I don't know if the power's going out for the comedy club too. That'd be crazy. If 3 weeks in a row you're just watching a comedy show and the light just goes out and you're just like, what the fuck? But because it's happened at the comedy club here. I think like once or twice. It was real weird. It came back on, I'm pretty sure, but I was like, what the I was spooked, honestly. I was like, oh shit. This is where, like, you ever been in a classroom and the fucking that as the power goes out and all the kids just kind of and then they start panicking. They legit start doing that, and you're just like, cause to be fair, if it's dark outside and the power goes out, oh, it's potentially a completely dark room of 150 people that immediately pull their phones out, and then there's just flashlights and bodies moving, and there's ongoing checks on the table that people haven't paid. People are out in the lobby freaking out. It's a whole event. But all of that being said, that is my Drew's top 5 picks for comedy clubs that I want to visit in the future. Number 1, The Mothership. Number 2, Go Bananas. Number 3, Zanies in Nashville. Number 4, the Comedy Cellar in New York. And number 5, the Comedy Store in LA once it's not on fire. Okay, so this next thing I'm doing is something completely 180 I've never done before, but it's also parallel with something I've been trying to do with Peyton recently and Brandon, technically. I want to make a TV show, like an animated cartoon TV show, like adult cartoon, like a Family Guy type of thing. And so I've been writing premises and concepts and scenarios and characters and dialogues and all sorts of things. So I decided I'm going to do this for a story that I personally, well, I shouldn't say that. To give you an idea, the the name of the segment is going to be This Never Happened. And I have an entire story with names, and none of this ever happened, okay? But there is going to be a moral to the story at the end of it. It's a full story just out, and I'm going to read it as a story being told. General Manager Mike oversees the chaos with ease. As doors open, morning light spills in, illuminating the cozy bakery cafe decor. Drivers Vic and Avery start preparing for deliveries, while store staff Matt and Carly begin organizing pastries and sandwiches. Summer, another delivery driver, is already out on a route. Brock, the ex-Marine team member, eyeing the quiet morning scene. Driver tablets sync with orders as Vic and Avery discuss delivery schedules. Matt and Carly chat softly near the coffee bar, speculating about weekend sales. Brock leans against the counter, observing his co-workers with interest. Andrew goes about his morning routine, familiar with the store's rhythms. Mike takes a short break to discuss something with Maggie. Then they both leave for the day. Mike citing a meeting, Maggie heading home, not feeling well. The morning slows down. No long lines yet. The team relaxes, swapping stories and jokes. Andrew notices the relaxed atmosphere and decides, I'm going to share shocking news. Andrew gathers everyone near the back counter. Matt, Carly, Vic, Avery, Brock, and Summer returning from her delivery route. Guys, need to tell you something. You won't believe what Maggie confessed to me. She and Mike, they're having an affair. The phone rings loudly, breaking the initial shock silence. Vic answers it, while the others remain stunned. Brock speaks up first. Yeah, I mean, that's still surprising, but I knew something was fishy going on there. Avery's eyes widen. I noticed something was off, but that blows my mind. That's crazy. Carly, Matt, and others discussed in hushed tones while Vic answers the phone in the background. Panera Bread, this is Vic. He takes notes, trying to catch their attention with gestures and raised eyebrows, but they're too engrossed. Vic finishes the phone call, hangs up the phone, and turns back to the group, about to share the delivery info when Summer beats him to it. Guys, update. Our next delivery is Mike's house. The group stares at Summer. Then Vic, who nods confirmingly, holds up his border pad. The room erupts in a mixture of shocked gasps, nervous laughter, and whispered comments. Brock deadpans. Well, the crew checks the delivery screen. Vic says, I'm up next. Avery chimes in, that's gonna be awkward. I'll take it if you don't want to. Summer jumps in, I'll take it too if it'll make you uncomfortable. Vic asserts, no, I'm taking it. I'm up next. Avery presses, but what if Maggie's there? Vic smirks. If anything, that means I get a raise. Andrew says, he's right. He is up next. Avery concedes, right? Alright, hopefully you don't see anything. Vic takes the delivery and arrives at Mike's house. Mike says suspiciously, that was quick. Vic replies calmly, yeah, wanted to keep it hot and ready for you. Mike's eyes narrow. Why are you looking around my house? Being nosy much? Vic downplays. I've never been here before. I'm just getting a view. Gotta go though. See ya. Vic leaves Mike's house thinking to himself, Maggie's not there. Wow. As he's leaving, glances in the rearview mirror, sees Maggie peeking behind the curtain, then pulls away real quick. Vic thinks aloud, oh shit, she's there. Vic returns to the store telling the crew, no, I didn't see her, she wasn't there. Then whispers to Andrew aside later, actually, I did see her, she was there. Andrew responds stunned, no freaking way. Well, that's work life for you. So that was just a random little story that never happened, and yeah, it was called Sips and Secrets at Panera. Just a random fake story. The moral of the story is you can't always trust a relationship, man, whenever it comes to workplaces, you know? And take with that as you will. It's all happening. We all got jobs. We all know how it is. So, how I end every episode is going to be, of course, with the shout out to a real one. And this one is long awaited. Of course, it was going to happen. When was going to happen? It's now. Episode 4. Shout out to my boy Connor. C-Seg, Quackus, whatever the fuck you want to call him. He's a real one, and I fucking love the man. That's fucked up. I'm sorry, Connor. But he's one of the most, like, not most. He's one of the more sane ones of the friend group. Kinda. Like, he still has a crash out moments here and there, but he is one of the more sane ones, though. And he can take all the jokes, whatever jokes you give him, he can bounce them back, he can shoot jokes back, but he can take the jokes, which is important. Giving them back is also important, but being able to take jokes is like, as long as you can do that, okay, we can start a friendship there. So he's always been cool with that. He's great at riffing. And this is something I really started to realize whenever we started to make videos on, like, make Call of Duty videos and stuff. I'll be recording, and he knows I'm recording, so he just, like, turns the riff on. Dude, I fucking love it. Because back in the day, there'd be the times where we're all just hanging out and chilling, and we kind of just jokingly start riffing and just start saying some, like, random nonsense, but he would add on to it, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, he can riff, he's cool. But then we're doing these games, and he'll just naturally take over for like 3 minutes, and I was just sitting there playing, not even talking, and Connor's just going and going, and I'm like, dude, yeah, fuck, I love this guy. So he's great at riffing, and he's just loyal as can be. He's one of the most loyal guys I've ever met, I feel like. So I'm always gonna say it. Shout out to this man, Connor. You a real one. And that's it for episode 4, and I'll see you in 5.